It is interesting to note that a country neighboring India is currently being attacked for enriching fissile materials to make nuclear weapons, while India has just demonstrated a capability that can also produce such materials, which could ultimately be used to make more bombs. To give you some context in simple terms, India has achieved first criticality in one of its reactors, meaning it has started a controlled, self-sustaining nuclear chain reaction for the first time. It is a fast breeder reactor using mixed oxide fuel and liquid sodium as a coolant. It can produce more fissile fuel than it consumes. This is a major technological leap. India is one of the very few countries, after Russia, to have achieved this. Dr. Homi Bhabha envisioned a 3-stage nuclear program many years ago, and this breeder reactor marks India's official entry into Stage 2. Now, this is a dual-use reactor, meaning it can be used to generate electricity as well as produce weapon-grade plutonium. Think of it like this. A normal nuclear reactor is like a car running on petrol. You burn fuel, and once it's used up, you need more fuel to keep the car running. But a fast breeder reactor is like a car that runs on petrol and somehow creates more petrol while driving. When India buys uranium for civilian use, the imported uranium is tracked by the IAEA and must be used only in civilian reactors. It cannot legally be diverted to weapons. So you might ask, how does India still maintain a weapons program? This is because India has kept part of its nuclear program outside IAEA safeguards. Unsafeguarded reactors can produce materials like plutonium for weapons. This is allowed because India is not a signatory to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. Even though the new fast breeder reactor is for civilian use, India has chosen to keep it outside IAEA safeguards. That means no international inspections. This is significant for India because it is relatively uranium poor in terms of easily mineable resources. Domestic production is around 600 tons per year, while demand is rising toward 1,800 plus tons. India has imported a large portion of its uranium in recent years under safeguards for civilian use. This creates vulnerability to supply disruptions and high costs. The ultimate goal of India's 3-stage nuclear program is to greatly reduce dependence on uranium imported from other countries, both as fuel and as blanket material. India aims to shift to reactors that primarily utilize its large reserves of thorium-232. In Stage 3, the plutonium-239, bred in Stage 2, will serve as starter fuel during the initial phase. It would be used together with thorium-232 in mixed oxide fuel and/or as a blanket to provide neutrons that convert thorium-232 into uranium-233. After some years of operation, the bred uranium-233 will take over as the main fissile fuel in the core. Dependence on plutonium-239 will then drop sharply, allowing the system to become largely self-sustaining with thorium as the primary input. After maturation of the system, small amounts of plutonium-239 may still be required for the initial startup of new cores, fuel balancing, and to compensate for inefficiencies in breeding and reprocessing. Now, why did the West fail to develop breeder reactors while India has been successful? Many countries like the United States, Germany, France, and Japan started ambitious fast breeder programs in the 1960s and 1970s, expecting a uranium shortage and the need to breed more fuel. However, they faced numerous technical issues, including leaks, political concerns, and long downtime for repairs. Fast breeders turned out to be much more expensive to build and operate than conventional light water reactors. But the biggest challenge was that these reactors use sodium as a coolant instead of light water. Sodium reacts violently with air, it can catch fire, and it explodes on contact with water. Even reactors in Russia, France, and Japan faced such issues. Small leaks are also very hard to detect. Repairs are difficult because the system cannot be easily opened, as everything must remain in an inert environment. India did not magically eliminate these sodium-related problems. Instead, it started small and gained long-term experience. For over 40 years, Indian scientists have developed hands-on expertise in handling sodium leaks, purification, pump design, instrumentation, and safety systems. There was also a strong strategic necessity for India. It has very limited uranium but abundant thorium. Fast breeder reactors are the only bridge to unlock thorium in Stage 3. This created strong political and institutional commitment. Successive governments continued funding the project despite delays and cost overruns. This was the opposite in Western countries, where there was strong public opposition to such reactors. India also developed many components locally, incorporated lessons from global failures, and avoided loop-type designs used in Western reactors, instead opting for a pull-type design with enhanced passive safety features. In the West, fast breeder reactors were eventually seen as unnecessary once uranium prices dropped and cheap uranium became widely available. But for India, easy access to uranium has never been guaranteed. After India's nuclear tests in 1974 and 1998, many countries refused to supply uranium due to sanctions and NPT-related restrictions. This isolation made the fast breeder program even more critical. However, the roots of this strategy go back to the 1950s. India has always planned fast breeder reactors as a bridge to multiply the value of scarce uranium and eventually transition to a thorium-based fuel cycle for true energy independence. It is important to note that the fast breeder reactor capability India has demonstrated has only just achieved criticality. Full power operation, reliable long-term performance, and successful reprocessing are still ahead. Therefore, India has not completely solved the sodium-related challenges. However, once India achieves this and a fleet of fast breeder reactors is operational, with a mature closed fuel cycle, the fuel cost per unit of electricity will drop significantly. In a mature thorium-based Stage 3 cycle, fuel costs could become even lower, as India would rely on its own abundant thorium resources.